Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here's your host, Joe Kuzma and Zach Celadonia.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. My name is Joe Kuzma, and joining me today after a little hiatus, recovering from the 2023 NFL Draft for a little more post-draft discussion. One, Zach Flash Celadonia. Hey, Zach, what's going on, man?
I love that you said recover because I actually had to do that, man. Like I think it was Sunday, Monday, back-to-back days. So right after the draft had concluded, I slept till I didn't go to bed any night of the draft till at least 2:30.
No.
And I woke up Sunday at about 10:30, and Monday was the same thing. And I never really sleep in that late anymore these days, but I was that tired. My body just needed the rest and the recuperation.
Yeah, I'm right here with you. The amount of stuff, the amount of work. Thank you, everyone who thanked us for what we put in for all the draft stuff, the 2 live shows, and all the work that went in that. I got to bed pretty late myself, and I'm getting old, man. Can't party like that anymore. I was reading somewhere. Maybe it was like it's one of these Facebook groups I'm in, irrelevant of what it was, but they were talking about like, well, the clubs just started, they open at like 10 p.m. And it's like, man, that's past my bedtime. Like,
yeah.
No, I'm a midnight guy. I'm a little bit of a night owl. I used to be much more of a night owl than that. Like, there was nothing better than the old Eaton Park breakfast buffet on a weekend night after hitting the clubs and whatnot in the bars. So I totally.
We're big Sheetz people in this area. So when you get trashed, you go to Sheetz or McDonald's. Get that grease and that salt in your stomach.
Not every McDonald's is 24/7 anymore, though. But Yin's over in Western Pennsylvania got the basket of fries, man. The basket. We don't have that in Ohio. Somebody corrected me. We mentioned this once before on the program, and somebody did say maybe they do. But in where I travel along I-71 and I-80 and I-70, no. I do not see the basket of fries anywhere, so but I do see that a lot when I'm traveling out like around Pittsburgh and that. So I think it's like a franchise dependent thing. I would like a nice little basket of McDonald's French fries. That makes me happy.
You know what? I'll tell you this: they sound better than they are. I've gotten the basket of fries a couple of different times, and I'm woke to this. I think that it's just their like leftover fries in the whatever it is where they sit after they're out of the fryer. They dump them in that like aluminum like container, and it sits under hot light, and you salt them. I worked at Five Guys before, no big deal. So you put them in this area and you salt them and they sit there. I'm hip to the theory that I think the basket of fries is just the leftover fries they have, and they needed a way to sell them because it's not that great. You're better off just getting 2 larges or 2 mediums. It's the same thing.
I miss the supersize. Like that whole documentary just totally ruined that. The supersize fry.
That guy's a pussy, dude. I could do that.
Oh, and you know what? It's mostly false too. It was mostly doctored. Actually, his health wasn't actually too bad, which like it makes me question. Of course, you don't want to go out drinking a bunch of like Coca-Colas and eating Big Macs anyways. I mean, who would think that would be healthy living or lifestyle to begin with? But my first supersized fry experience, I was probably much, much younger in one of the malls around Youngstown, Ohio. And they actually put them in like the giant large or what might have been a supersized drink cup. They didn't have an actual fry container. They just filled it like you're at the fair or somewhere, one of these fairs.
Like Five Guys.
Five Guys, they like throw them in the bag. They throw some on the floor. They throw them out the window at your car.
If you get a small though, they just fill a little cup up.
Yeah, but you know what? A small's all you need. That thing like puts me in a food coma. Like literally, I feel like I'm getting diabetes. Like just thinking about it, like looking at Five Guys fries. Like you think McDonald's fries are bad, folks. If you haven't had Five Guys fries, seriously, that might give you like I don't know, it clogs your arteries just instantly. Like
I think I put on a good 10 to 15 pounds when I was working there because you got free lunch every day. And this was a long time ago. We're talking like fresh out of high school, Flash. And every day you got Five Guys, but it wasn't charged and you could do whatever you want. So I used to make triple patty burgers. I used to take 2 of our hot dogs. We'd slice down the middle. When I put 2 of them together, make a double hot dog sandwich. I used to get real crazy with it. And everyone that worked there when I showed up was like, you'll get sick of it eventually, dude. Never did. Never got sick of it.
While we're talking about food and annoying everyone by not talking about draft picks, Hot dogs. What do you like on your hot dogs? There's like always like the people that like everything like thrown on them. I'm gonna have to ask Brian this as well. I've always been just a ketchup guy. My mom's always just the onion person. It's like those are a different variety other than like the mustard and chili and whatnot, folks. But having lived in Southern Ohio, the whole Skyline thing with the chili and cheese, they just dump more cheese than what you get in a taco at Taco Bell. Like you can barely see the hot dog. Like I'm privy to that too, but I'm not a mustard guy. I just never have been.
I'm a just true hot dog lover. I can get down with all of it. Like you mentioned, ketchup and onions. I usually wouldn't have just a hot dog like that, but my range of how I like my hot dog starts with strictly ketchup and mustard, and then I like onions on top as well, if a possibility. Chili, of course. Cheese, of course. I've had a little bit of a Chicago style before, where they have a slice of a pickle on one. That's pretty good. So I'm pretty open to my hot dogs. I'm accepting of all hot dog styles.
There's like a hot dog thing going around with the Cincinnati Bengals too that I'm not going to get into. It's a little disparaging for those guys. It just didn't. Somebody dropped like a term or a word that didn't mean what they thought it meant, and they're getting kind of ripped for it. But if you ever make it to Chicago, my friend, Portillo's, that sounds like right up your speed. You know, it's like
Portillo's.
They throw everything on the hot dogs. It's like a chain. Now they've branched out from Chicagoland, of course, too. Like you can find them in Florida and stuff too. Like if you go down to Disney, but they throw everything on there. It's kind of like a craft hot dog thing. So check that out. I'm giving all kinds of plugs to all kinds of food. Why don't we talk some football? Football makes me hungry though, so that's why. We're going to talk about all of the Steelers draft picks, starting from the very top. Just about every angle we could think of when it comes to this, right? So let's dive into it. Broderick Jones, like the pick, right? Love the pick. Love the pick. It's going to be hard to say like I'm iffy on any of these. You don't have to sell me on anything, but I was thinking about this, and everyone's talking about how the Steelers nailed the draft. They're given early draft grades. Of course, we don't do the draft grade thing here because, like a few other smart, intelligent people out there, we don't have to defend anything. Let's wait like 2, 3, 4 years and see what ends up happening. You know, we probably gave the Devin Bush thing, trading up to get Devin Bush, an A when that happened. And then in hindsight, it's like, you kind of go back on that. Nobody goes back on their draft grades.
Objection, Your Honor. The draft, it was an A until he got hurt. So
yeah,
that was accurate.
You will not find me disagreeing with that take ever.
The draft grades have gotten they've come off the mountaintop recently, and people all of a sudden hate draft grades. I've noticed that on numerous podcasts I've listened to, and just seeing people talk about them. Oh, draft grades suck. Who cares? Who cares? You care. I care. Everybody cares. We all read the articles, and we all want to see what people think of our team. And we want to see justification that we did well. And obviously it doesn't mean anything right now. We don't know anything right now, but it goes hand in hand with, I've had a lot of, is this the best draft we've seen in Steelers recent memory conversation with people? And I keep saying, without seeing anybody play, yes, 100%. And it's your God-given right as a fan to walk around for these next 3 months and just think, man, we're going to be so sick because we killed the draft. And that's all you know right now. And there's nothing wrong with living in that positive mindset that, we aced this thing. Every draft pick that the Steelers had, 1 through 7, you can argue the value was great, the need was met. Like there's no reason to cap your happiness. And I just noticed that recently, that I'm like, when did this happen to draft grades? When did they have their, Morgan Whalen moment where everybody just kind of like turned against them, and because of whether or not they did something or not, or canceled a show or not, now everybody thinks it's like some kind of like, oh, you should be embarrassed if you like to look at the draft grades. I mean, it's easy for me to say this year because we did well that I love the draft grades, but I've always liked looking them up and just seeing what people think, whether you like to just spark an argument with the person and disagree, or you like justification that your team did kill it as much as the Steelers did. I think draft grades are fine. I'm here to defend draft grades.
Well, I don't like grading it on saying like, okay, this is an A because this player, blah, blah, blah. This is what you expect, because you don't know what the player is going to turn out like. So that's what I mean by a draft grade. But as far as like the actual Steelers moving up the 14, get in front of the Jets, get a position, a player of need that looks like it's going to be a good fit, that much I do like. Now, I will tell you one thing. One perception of this I was thinking about was, do we think the Steelers draft was that much better like this year over recent years? It's because I think they had 3 picks in the top 50 for the first time since 1989. I think that has a lot to do with it. When you're adding pick 32 there, you add something that's in between your first and your second round, and you're getting like 3 first-round graded whatever players. There I am with the graded stuff, but take it with a grain of salt, folks.
Naturally.
Yeah, that makes it feel like it's just so much bigger and better than it should feel that way. Then you have Omar Khan and Andy Weidel moving up and making that move to get ahead of the Jets and get your guy, and Broderick Jones seems like a dude. So Broderick Jones is, I like it. I didn't think he was going to be there. It's much like my not picking of Kenny last year. I just didn't feel he was going to be available, even though I said in one of the articles I did a mock draft of, it's like, man, I really considered, but these mock draft things, he was never there at 17. Well, I mentioned this many times already on these shows. It's like, well, he wasn't going to be there at 17 this year either. That's why they had to move up. So you got to give an A for that. And I think Broderick Jones, I think you were already chatting about this on Twitter. They don't draft a guy like that to not start. An offensive lineman, you want those 5 guys starting together all year long. This isn't like a plug and play. This isn't like a sit, watch and learn, like a Kenny Pickett type situation, like with a quarterback where you have different levels of confidence, and you have like, that was something else I got into with somebody. It was like, well, they started Mitch Trubisky to start. Yeah, they played 2 division games on the road at defending AFC champion Cincinnati Bengals. You had Bill Belichick come home for your home opener. He's a defensive guru who's going to wreck rookie quarterbacks. And then you had a short week to go up to Cleveland for another division game on the road against a rival. You had 2 AFC North opponents in the first 3 weeks, one of those on a short week. And you're going to put Kenny Pickett out there? No, hell no, you're not going to do that. That's why we called on the show forever. We were saying the Kenny and the Jets thing. It's like week 4. You looked at it around this time last year and said that. But Broderick Jones, I think he's a week 1 starter. He's going to be given every opportunity to be the week 1 starter anyway.
Yeah, it's making me want to pull my hair out, honestly. And I know people have to.
Don't do that. You'll look like me.
What's up?
Don't do that. You'll look like me.
Yeah, maybe start with my beard. They need to fill airtime. They need to pump content, and they need to create conversation. But he doesn't have to start week 1. Is he going to start week 1 is just such a waste of time to me, because I feel like, number one, they traded up to get the guy. If they would have sat there at 17 and got him, or got a tackle rated just behind him, I would almost lend an ear to those conversations. I would hear you out about maybe him not starting week 1, but they traded up to get him, which shows how they feel about him right there. They've already showed their hand, and they've told everyone, we think this guy is worthy of a first-round pick, a left tackle, ready to go. Number 2, he's going against Dan Moore as his competition. And no offense to Dan Moore, not trying to be mean here, but it isn't like he's some 8-9-year veteran who's seasoned and has been like this solid player for year in and year out, and like is, he doesn't get too many penalties. He's solid for you on the front 5. Like, none of that applies to Dan Moore. He was a 4th-round pick just a few years ago, who's been starting, in my opinion, for lack of like competition in on the roster. There's nobody better than Dan Moore. Well, now there is. There's no point to force this, like, oh, well, let's bring him in slowly. No, man, the whole point of going up to get him was to get him in there immediately, because if the Steelers had waited and sat back at 17, there's a good chance Broderick Jones gets picked by the Jets, and then they're sitting there having conversations about, do we take the 4th best tackle now? Do we take Joey Porter Jr. now? And now the whole draft is different. So I think it was very deliberate, obviously, for the Steelers to move up and get Broderick Jones, because they envision him as a week 1 immediate starter. He's going to be 22, right? May 16th.
You know what?
So
I didn't even look at that, to be honest. And I usually do. I usually know that right off the top of my head. But yeah, he is young. I know he's young.
He's young, but he's not 20. 22, like, you can hang in this league, especially if you've got the goods. And by all accounts, Broderick Jones was at least the 2nd best left tackle in this draft. So for the Steelers to go out and address that need, how could you not love the pick? Starting or not starting, he will be, aside. The fact that they only gave up a 4th-round pick to move up to get him, too. And that in itself, I don't think is getting enough shine, because it happened so fast, and it was kind of like right there before our eyes as round 1 went underway. The Steelers got up to 14, and there was all this talk, coming from me even, that, oh, do you trade pick 32? Do you trade pick 49 to get back up into the 1st round? They traded a 4th-round pick to get up from 18 to 14, which is nothing. Like, look how the draft turned out. We all still love it. So that 4th-round pick clearly didn't matter. And now there's this pushback because people hate to have fun. They hate to hear the fun stories. But there is reason to believe that a good reason why the price tag was so low was the Patriots were more than happy, Bill Belichick, more than happy to screw the Jets over, division rival. And now it's all coming out. I've seen a couple other Steelers blog sites being like, that's not true. They came out and said they didn't do that. Well, what do you think? They're not going to tell the media, yeah, we wanted to screw the Jets. That's bulletin board material. So I don't think, like, use your own mind, do your own research. Love that. I'm pretty sure the Jets or the Patriots did do that, not only because they felt like they could still get a top corner at 17, because you had Christian Gonzalez, Emmanuel Forbes, Joey Porter Jr., Deontay Banks, all still on the board at 14. They also felt like it would screw the Jets over. So love that. Love that it didn't cost a lot. Love that the Steelers are going to get a week 1 starter at one of the most important positions in football. You know what I say, if you've been listening to the show, it's quarterback, cornerback, left tackle, edge. Those are the 4 most important spots in football, 4 highest paid, 4 highest drafted. You can't not love the Steelers addressing one of those needs with their 1st-round pick and giving up virtually nothing to achieve it.
Yeah, and we'll catch on with that 4th round here when we get to it. Broderick Jones, 21. He's got about 12 days here. What's his birthday? 14 days. Yeah, it's May 16th. He'll be 22. Happy early May the 4th to you as well. May the 4th be with you, man. Bill Belichick also was the head coach of the Jets for a solid minute and resigned after a day. I'm not sure if you know this because you were, I don't know if you ever heard this story or you're just too young to remember it, but then he went back and became the head coach of the Patriots. So there's no love lost with that whole Jets, Patriots, Bill Belichick type, what do you want to say? Love triangle or whatever it's going on there. The drama, the
animosity runs deep.
Yes. So I hadn't talked to you since you were partying it up over at Stage AE in the Steelers draft party, but I'm assuming you liked, and I'm assuming there was a raucous ovation when they didn't move out of 32. And I heard the phones were a ringing. And it took them a little while. Somebody had asked me, one of my buddies, not a Steelers fan, what took so long for them to put that pick in? Well, one of it was just TV. You talk about the entertainment value. And they were talking about this on like Sirius XM or whatever. One of these guys, one of the shows I listened to was talking about this as well. They're like, I want to know what the pick is. So I'm looking at Twitter. Well, I was trying to avoid Twitter to not spoil my enjoyment of watching it on TV. All 3 of these picks got spoiled because I just could not avoid the news because the internet was so far ahead of TV. They kind of dragged it out a little too much, but that pick was there because that phone was ringing and they were still fielding offers. And we saw some teams move like the Titans to get Will Levis, but I'm assuming that the city of Pittsburgh went nuts. I was kind of going nuts too. I'm like, Joey Porter has to be the pick here. And there it is. And very seldom do, most of us here, myself, you and Brian, we hit on most of these or talked about most of these guys as like, these are our must wants. And it feels like a kid in a candy store to get all of them. So staying put and getting Joey Porter Jr. Also your thoughts on, is he a week 1 starter? That's going to be interesting as well, because he very, very well could be. It might be one where they ease him in. I wonder how raw or whatever they feel. I guess we're going to see what happens at camp. If he's shutting down people or competing with like George Pickens, for example, and knocking some passes away that are on the money from Kenny Pickett. There are some first team drills. He's probably not going to start in the first team like the first week or 2 at camp. But you get into some of this.
Iron.
What's that?
Iron sharpens iron.
Iron sharpens iron. That's right, my friend. So what do you think about Joey Porter Jr.?
Yeah, I love the pick. There's nothing to hide about that, certainly. And being at the draft party was so cool down at Stage A. Did a really good job of organizing that. I wasn't sure what to expect going into that because I've never been to something like that, but there were more people than I expected. It was more organized and less chaotic than I was expecting. You could hear everything, you could see everything. People were having fun. And as it was starting, I said I almost wanted the Steelers to take Joey Porter just for vibes alone, because everybody in there wanted the pick to be Joey Porter. And we called this on the show too. We said flat out that pick 32 heading into this draft, being in the Steelers' possession, had immense value. And if you had told me before the draft started, in particular before round one concluded, that they would trade the 32nd pick, well, I would have said no, duh. That's what I expected for us to trade back from 32. But then we said, if Joey Porter, well, because Joey Porter fell, that changes everything. We predicted that it'd be very hard for the Steelers to move on from Joey Porter from that pick, knowing that if a team traded up, it would probably be for him or one of the quarterbacks or perhaps one of the good D linemen or tight ends that was left at the time. So we saw this coming, that they probably wouldn't move back from 32, but that explains why, in my opinion, the pick took, air quotes, so long. It didn't take that long, but I feel like they were just holding on a couple last moments to see if a team got that crazy and maybe offered up a first-round pick, because those were the reports all day, that it was going to take an immense, great offer for the Steelers to move back. And I think the elephant in the room that was telling them that was keeping them from trading it, was Joey Porter Jr. So I'm happy they made the pick. Position of need, again, one of my top 4 positions in football. You got to have that position squared away. And if you can have an elite talent at that spot, it makes winning a Super Bowl that much easier. I think he should have gone in the first round. He's got historic length, good speed, good coverage ability. People make a big deal about the interception number being so low in college. I think he had 1 or none. Well, he had 11 pass breakups. So that shows you he's not some slouch out there. He's not getting toasted. And turnovers will come. I'm not worried about the turnover number with Joey Porter. I think he fits their system. He fits their roster. He obviously fits their pedigree and their history. So I was very happy with the pick. And I think that, he's a little different from Broderick Jones as far as competition in his room. You've got Patrick Peterson and Levi Wallace, who both can start on the outside. You also have Arthur Maulet, who proved his worth as a solid nickel cornerback last year. And then you have the unknown of Ahkello Witherspoon and James Pierre. Now, of that group, I would say James Pierre is the equivalent to Dan Moore of the left tackle room, who Joey Porter is not competing with. He's competing with Levi Wallace, Patrick Peterson, and Ahkello Witherspoon for as long as he's on the team. So I think it's a little less likely that Porter starts week 1. But before I get killed in the comments, cornerback, like receiver, is a similar spot where you can filter guys in and out. And we all expect at this point, because of interviews and what he said himself, Patrick Peterson may play a little safety, may play a little nickel, and Joey Porter is going to get reps. He'll get out there. As far as being the starter they announced on CBS Sports with a little picture, that might take a couple weeks, but he'll be out there week 1, week 2. It might take a couple weeks before he's, saying his name, Joey Porter Jr., Penn State, on NBC football.
Oh, they're going to announce him, and they're going to announce him as number 24, Joey Porter Jr., as he runs out the tunnel with Ike Taylor's number, or the irony of another guy who didn't have big interception numbers wearing that one. We didn't get into, we'll be talking a little bit about some of the... Yeah, well, I did when I saw it. I was thinking first, I was like, rest in peace, Benny Snell, but at some point, we're going to compare all of this to the rest of the roster, too, as an overview, but it's more focused on the rookies right now. But they did sign Chandon Sullivan, and there's a lot that people are making a meal out of and saying the Vikings secondary got torched last year and stuff. I'm like, I don't expect this guy to make the team. So it's...
I forgot about him. Yeah. I heard he's going to be more in the nickel mix as well, Sullivan.
Yeah, I mean, they've got plenty of corners. I'm thinking at some point here, Joey Porter, he doesn't go at 32, practically a first-round pick. Do not play. It's unheard of for the Steelers' second-round picks to not get in the mix somehow as well. But if they had any doubts about him being raw or anything else, and you're absolutely right, even if they move back 5-6 spots, he's not going to be there if they don't jump at him. The value is to take him right there. And the other guys were off the board. Deontay Banks was gone already. Emmanuel Forbes was already gone. I think Julius Brents goes right after this, if I'm not mistaken.
He went a couple picks later, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I've got it, of course. 44, but that's before 49. He went to the Colts. I'm trying to see if there was any other corners. No, between those two picks, there were not. But that's before the 49. It depends who wanted to trade with the Steelers here. I think Arizona picked up pick 41, so they might have still had a shot at Brent's. But we don't know where Brent's was on his draft board, so why force that issue? I don't think anybody's upset with this, especially the way this ends up playing out. Next guy up, another second round pick. I was like floored. I'm like, am I right on this guy? Keeanu Benton, another guy that we talked a little bit about. Primarily, he's going to fill that like old Javon Hargrave role where he could play a nose tackle. Still a second round pick. Another guy I think that gets on the field and immediately an upgrade over, I think, what you had before with Chris Wormley or Montravius Adams, or just name all the other guys, Brandon Fajoiko and
Loudermilk,
Watts. Yeah, even Loudermilk. I mean, Loudermilk's on the bottom end of this type of thing, but we don't know where Leal's particularly playing. This gives them a little more depth behind Cam Hayward, Larry Ogunjobi. This guy had a win rate. He was just unbelievable with the amount of pressure he was able to put up. You put him in a traditional 3-4, and I think we're starting to get some shades of, now the Steelers can start stopping the run again. Now they're going to be able to do some other things. I mean, just try and stop. I have a lot of high expectations for Benton. So you put him with Cam Hayward, Larry Ogunjobi, TJ Watt, and Alex Highsmith on that defensive front. That is going to be hell for opposing offensive lines. You can keep giving A's out as much as you want on some of these picks. This was the one. I can't say that for sure because we still got one more where I'm jumping out of my skin about. I was very excited about Keeanu Benton out of Wisconsin, which was another thing. I got to bring this up real quick too. It was one of the beat writers. I will protect the guilty here. Mentioned
if you're not from Georgia or Wisconsin, you can't be a Steeler. Sorry.
Well, all the Wisconsin players got in contact with Benton, and to this point, it was kind of like, what? Both of them, including TJ Watt. So I was like, oh, so TJ Watt and the other guy. Like, I know they have like somebody that's pretty much a practice squad player, but it was just kind of it was a real silly kind of statement here because it's like it was TJ Watt, Isaiah Loudermilk, Scott Nelson, and then of course one of the other players that gets picked later, the brother of Nate Herbig, Nick Herbig, ends up joining the team. But it's like, oh, all the Wisconsin folks got in touch, and it was like, yeah, both of them, at that point. So I'm gonna. It's not quite Chris Collinsworth. You ever play Madden when it was just John Madden on the commentary? He's like talking with Pat Summerall, and he's like, "What do you think about Keeanu Benton?" There's that.
That was before my time, brother. My first year playing Madden was the Michael Vick cover, so it was a little bit after that.
That might have worked. That might have been still Pat and John Madden with Michael Vick. That was like 2004, I think.
Yeah.
It was a good one. 2003 was really good too, but 2004, 2005, I think the game peaked at that point.
Yeah, I agree. I read around 07, 08 was like when I really was like in the thick of my Madden days. As a kid anyway, I played all the way through high school. So Madden 12 was when I really played a lot. But Keeanu Benton, I love the pick. No surprises there. The Steelers do this every year, I feel like, in the draft. And it's inevitable because I am only a human man. I am one person. I'm singular. And I can't know every prospect front ways and back ways. There's some guys that even if they're highly rated, they kind of slipped through my cracks a little bit. I know you and Brian like Benton, but I had not put a whole lot of time into studying this guy up. And all I'm hearing is great things. First and foremost, what I loved when I got home from the draft party is I was so juiced up as I was watching the draft again on TV when I got home on NFL Network replaying. And the Steelers were up at 32, and they were talking about picking Joey Porter or picking somebody else or trading. And about 30 seconds before the pick was in, Charles Davis goes on this tangent about how, well, if the Steelers can't trade the pick and they aren't thinking corner here, Keeanu Benton's a name I really like right here as well because of this, that, and the other. And I was like, full-on Leonardo DiCaprio meme. I was like, we get him in the next round. Like, I was like, that alone tells you that this guy was highly regarded coming out as a top defensive tackle and a film guy I really respect on Twitter. His name's Brett Coleman. He does a lot of good work breaking down players, especially during the draft. He compares Keeanu Benton to Cam Hayward, so that works out. And it's a position of need again. we maintained on this show in particular, and me with my friends, talking to family and friends, I said these top 3 picks, the top 2 in particular, I was thinking cornerback and tackle. And the one wild card that could throw things off would be a defensive lineman if a one of immense talent fell to them and made them want to pick one over a tackle or corner. Well, that didn't happen, but one with a lot of talent did still fall. However, they were able to get him at 49. And I do believe, similar to Joey Porter Jr., he may not be the week 1 starter, but this guy's going to play a lot as a rookie, and he'll probably be starting at one point as a rookie. And he's more in the Broderick Jones camp, where his competition isn't that thick. He already went down the list. There really isn't the most fearsome group in that room ahead of him. So I expect him to play a lot, and I expect him to make an impact because along with stuffing the run, he has a lot of impressive pass rush reps on tape. And when you can rush the passer as an interior defensive lineman, that's how you become a guy like Javon Hargrave or Cam Hayward. That's not a lot of people understand that are casuals. But when you're a defensive tackle, not a defensive end, if you're a defensive tackle that can rush the passer, it's like being a safety that has the range that I've talked about before. It's like an elite trait that these guys have that separates you from the rest. And Keeanu Benton has that.
Yeah, I know that a lot of people were looking. They were thinking maybe even Brian Branch and let's see, a couple centers went, Tippmann, Avila. Trying to think who else.
The closer we got to the draft, the better I felt about them not taking a safety, because I think that Keanu Neal is going to play a lot. 2 Keanu's on defense. Yes. Keanu Neal is going to play a lot of reps at safety, and Casey will probably be your starter with Minka, but Keanu's going to play a lot, and they feel good about their room. So safety was the one spot as we got closer to the draft that I felt better and better about them maybe not needing to address that spot on the draft. They probably wait till next year.
Yeah, and I was kind of banging my fist. It was real close getting up to the draft, and it was because of the visit from Darnell Washington that made me think, hey, they got a hole at tight end. Like, if somebody gets hurt, you got Pat Freiermuth out for a concussion protocol, or Zach Gentry gets dinged. Like, you're not gonna be able to just throw Connor Hayward out there. He's a little light. And,
the fire hydrant.
Yeah, he is. He's like a pit bull or something. You know what I mean? But he's not a Saint Bernard. You know, the giant Great Dane, like a bigger dog. And that's about my extent of my dog breeds that I know. So I'm not well versed on that, but Brian was the one that, to give credit to him, he was the one that first brought up Washington and was even putting him in a little higher. We were even thinking like pick 32, 49 if he lasts there. This guy is a mammoth sized.
A lot of people were thinking that. He was Daniel Jeremiah's 33rd ranked overall player in the entire class.
I know, man. You have a lot of that. Like, there was a lot of these where all 4 were top 50, top 75, depending on who's big boards and who's draft analyst, unless you're Mel Kiper Jr. Mel Kiper Jr. gives the Steelers a B+ because they didn't have enough day 3 picks.
Then my dad was saying the same shit. He was like, he's a Baltimore guy.
And he gave the Browns a B+, and they didn't pick until like 74 or something. They didn't even have like picks in the first 2 rounds. The Steelers have 3 of them, and it's like, what kind of nonsense does that make? And it's like, I understand. I don't think he really panned anyone's draft, and everybody does well with what they got. Maybe it's like that's where the grade is, and you can't necessarily compare to what another team does. That's where it gets a little silly. But Darnell Washington, 6'7", 265. Big dude. A lot of people were scared off. I guess he fell to where he did with the Steelers. Let's see, what pick was this? 93 in the 3rd round. That's unbelievable too. They were actually up at 80. Got to mention this too as part of. So this parlays, they moved back. I had some Bengals fans approach me and they said, "Hey, you took our guy." A lot of people had Darnell Washington mocked to the Bengals, and he fell because he had his knee scoped or something or cleaned up. I guess he had some inflammation, swelling, whatever it may be, but he had a medical procedure, and everyone says, no, that's you're not going to hear that before the draft because everyone's keeping those cards like real close to the vest, right? That's why the Steelers probably had him come in, but then they trade back. The guts to trade back and think, no, nobody's going to touch this guy. We've already had the run on the tight ends. We're taking a look at. I'm trying to see where all the players were. So Tucker Kraft went. Oh man, yeah, the Packers took like 2 tight ends somewhere in this too. And
they took Musgrave, didn't they?
Yeah, I think so. And let's see, Brenton Strange went at 61 to the Jaguars, but that's well before. So the Steelers, they decide to move back with the Carolina Panthers, and they feel, okay, some running backs may come off the board, and like 3 of them do. Some other linebackers they're not interested in. I know a lot of people were looking at Dorian Williams, who ended up going to the Bills, et cetera, et cetera.
Simpson.
Yeah, but the Cincinnati Bengals were sitting there at 92. So the Steelers had picked 93, and the Bengals trade out of it. I was worried. I'm like, are the Bengals, is this going to be William Jackson all over again? And they take
Me too, dude. I tweeted about that. I said I do not like that the Bengals pick right before us.
And they
I was fine with trading back.
Yeah.
And then when I saw they were 92, I was like, dude, like they're going to take somebody we traded back for or had the idea to trade back for. And to those of the few, I know most people are pretty on board with that pick and they love the pick from a value perspective alone. But if you were upset with the pick because it was a tight end, you didn't think it was as much of a need as Joe or myself did, they could have taken him at 80, dude. They could have taken him at 80, and then you don't get the next draft pick, Nick Herbig. They were smart enough to bump back, get the tight end, get that need filled, and also bump back and get a guy of also good value, Nick Herbig, who checks the box of either edge or off-ball linebacker value. So they both mattered. And he fell because of a knee issue. You're right. They were talking about that's why he was falling. He got red flagged, as they say, in some people's war rooms, in their draft rooms, that their doctors came back to them and said, listen, this guy, he's got like maybe 3, 4, 5 years max. His knee's going to go. And at the same time, there was another source reported per Jeremy Fowler, I'm pretty sure, that called those claims laughable, saying the guy's going to play a long time, at least 10 years, this guy said. So in the 4th round, when you get to that point, those are the risks you take. We're talking about almost pick 100 here. And they're getting a guy who, I mentioned this already, Daniel Jeremiah, who's a widely respected scout on TV, has a podcast, worked for the Ravens, Browns, Chargers now, etc. He had him ranked as his 33 overall player in the whole class. And a lot of people had him going at least in the 2nd round, and the Steelers steal him at 93. And tight end aside, he's going to provide a great weapon in the red zone and in other aspects for Kenny Pickett, but he essentially is a 6th lineman. A lot of people say this. Brian has said this. You've said this. He's proud to say it himself. I heard somebody say his license plate on his car reads 6'0" lineman. I don't know how true that is, but I heard that's a thing.
That's pretty cool.
He is willing to embrace that role, which a lot of tight ends aren't. Like, they want to catch passes. They want to be a receiver. All tight ends at heart want to be a receiver, just like all receivers at heart want to be a quarterback. They all want more, And a tight end of his skill set to be so openly willing and proud to block is rare, and he's darn good at it. You look at a lot of Georgia's best run plays last year, in particular to the left, it's Broderick Jones and Darnell Washington just taking dudes and throwing them out of the club. The two of them, when they team up, they can plow through. It's like watching 2 tractors do like the crop circles on a farm. Like, it's just right over them. And then you see the running back bust through. I have a theory. I can't bet on this anywhere. Najee Harris might have his longest run of the year, and he might have a touchdown where he goes untouched. I don't know how long it's going to be away from, but that's how good their blocking is and how much I'm looking forward to seeing them come together, reunited in Pittsburgh now, and still have that chemistry as a unit, at least when Darnell's on the left side. And that's besides his receiving ability. I'm very excited for his receiving ability. I think he would have posted better stats if the Georgia Bulldogs didn't have Brock Bowers, who's largely viewed as the best tight end prospect ever. So he was hogging up a lot of the tight end love. Darnell Washington knew that going into the season, didn't transfer. Another sign that he just gets it. And similar to Joey Porter and probably Keeanu Benton to a lesser extent, we're getting a pissed off guy, a guy who feels like he should have gone earlier. And that's something you can't measure or watch on tape, is it how much a guy wants it or how much he's pissed off. And I love that. That's a reoccurring theme of this class, is we're getting guys who should have been picked earlier and are pissed off about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. Like, yeah, they all are. Particularly Porter was in the green room. And how about that? Like, I thought he was going to show up there at stage AE. He went to the
I know, right? A
facility.
lot of people thought that was a rumor going around. They already picked him and told him, and he was backstage waiting to come out. That would have been sick.
Yeah, it would have been even more sick if somebody was like, "We'll give you next year's first round for 32," and then they don't take him. So, and then like, what do you do?
Joey, about
Sorry,
that.
Joey. Sorry, Joey. I know we promised. I thought you were going to jump the Herbig real quick, too. So we'll go back to that as far as the topics go. But
we'll try to get you at 49, Joey.
Yeah, you know what? Not everyone thinks Najee's going to have a good season. Andrew Filipponi, our favorite person one of our favorites in the Pittsburgh sports media, has a bold Steelers prediction. Says Jaylen Warren will be the Steelers RB1 by Halloween. No excuses for Najee Harris behind much improved line. Najee injuries and overuse in rookie year derailed career. Dude, blow it out your ass. Like, that's just like, that is such a bad take. Overuse.
Does he forget how last year ended? Najee like kind of righted the ship after like week 4 or 5. He was running like first round pick Najee.
Yeah, first round pick Najee, and that was behind like Dan Moore and Kevin Dotson. And like, what do you think's going to happen now with Isaac Suamalu and Broderick Jones and Darnell Washington and a 12 personnel or something like that?
He was largely responsible for. I love giving Kenny all the credit in the world, and he deserves it. But Najee is largely responsible as well. During the Raiders, they all of a sudden decided to stop covering him in the pass game, and Kenny threw him like some of the most passes he caught all year in a single game and helped us get down the field for George Pickens' touchdown. And versus the Ravens, he literally caught the game-winning touchdown on a great play. So I feel like that's a force. That's another guy just trying to pump content and fill airtime.
Yeah, and you know what? That's why we're here in the middle of the week. One show this week, probably. We don't have to force anything. We said most of our piece on the first 2 rounds. Now we're coming around to some of the guys we didn't get to talk about because we didn't do anything since day 3 of the draft. That's because they only had 3 picks, and at the time we didn't even know on Friday until it was said and done that they were going to have another one for Nick Herbig, brother of Nate, some more family ties in this draft, another Wisconsin guy, and there's some speculation here. Is he an edge rusher? Is he depth for an edge rusher? That's where they claim that they're going to like to have him at. But you know what? As an outside linebacker, this guy, he projects he could be an off-ball linebacker, much in the same way Ryan Shazier moved from edge when he was at Ohio State over to the inside too. So we're just going to have to see how camp ends up sorting itself out, but you got to like his blitzing ability, his ability to win. He was, again, very highly thought of through a lot of the draft analysts, a lot of draft boards. Could be something that's a little bit of a deep sleeper. 4th round picks. These are still guys that contribute. So I would expect to see Herbig out there in some capacity. I would assume, unless they add some more edge depth, that it's going to be on the edge first, that they're going to try him out. Although we still don't know about DeMarvin Leal. But behind the Landon Roberts and Cole Holcomb, all you got is Mark Robinson. So you're going to have, even if he does move inside, you got some green guys. Herbig definitely is going to contribute on special teams this year. He's going to get a helmet, I believe, on game days as well.
Yeah, he's a stud. Absolute stud. That's what Nate Herbig said about his brother during his initial press conference whenever the Steelers signed Nate Herbig. They, of course, asked him about Nick, his brother at Wisconsin, and that is when Nate began to pitch the idea to the Steelers and all of us drafting Nick Herbig. And I'll admit that when I heard that, I wasn't that into the draft yet. As far as the mid rounds, especially, I mean, I had the first couple rounds down, I guess, but Nick Herbig was a name I heard and I thought, oh, that's cool. Like, what is like a late round pick? And then the more I saw this guy and the more I heard about him, I was like, oh no, he might go in the middle round. So that actually be a decent pick for the Steelers. I'm on board. And I keep bringing up this guy's name, but Daniel Jeremiah, when day 3 started, Nick Herbig was his top rated player left, or top 2. By the time the Steelers picked, he was the top player left. So they crush it again with value from that perspective. The whole tweener thing, I think that's part of why he fell, not knowing if he's going to be an inside guy or an outside guy. They have need for depth in both areas, but I'm with you. I think edge makes more sense because he's not the biggest guy, and I would argue that makes him more likely to be on the edge because if you're in the middle, you're taking on guards, you're filling in the run game, and when you're an outside guy, you're still doing that too, but as a rookie especially, this is what the Seahawks did for Bruce Irvin back in the day. They could just say, listen, dude, just pin your ears back and rush the quarterback. We're not going to worry about putting you in like over TJ or Highsmith, obviously. Like, but on downs where we know it's going to be a pass, maybe he'll get in for that and just try to rush the quarterback. He can handle that as a rookie. He'll add more weight to his frame over time. But right now, I think he would be better suited, at least for the start of his career, to be on the edge and just being asked to blitz. And of course, play your keys. If they're going to run, then react. But put him in there to rush the passer. Don't overload his plate. And I think they can succeed that way with this kid. I love his energy. Some of his videos have been my favorite that have come out since being drafted. He's a big screamer. His draft party seemed like it was a lot of fun. You had Nate Herbig there gassing him up, and I love watching those videos, man. They aren't foolproof, but you get a good sense of how much a guy is just excited and how much he's going to put forward to be great. And these guys who scream, they yell, they cry, I eat that shit up. So I love the energy he brings. I love that the Steelers got him where they did. They didn't reach for him. Great value, position of need. So he checks all those boxes. I think it's a good pick, all things considered.
Yeah, and something that needs to be said is 20 sacks in his last 23 games. This is Wisconsin. This is in the Big Ten. These are some big boys. These are, you've got Michigans and the Ohio States of the world that they've got to play.
Dude, everybody loves the SEC, me included. And I thought of this the other day, and you just reminded me. It was like a lightning bolt in my head. I thought about this, how SEC gets all the shine. Well, the best linemen typically come from the Big Ten. Typically. Like, not always, but that's if you're going to get a good lineman, chances are you're looking Big Ten or SEC. And the Big Ten, they breed the big boys, like you just said. So the fact that Herbig was able to put those stats up in the Big Ten, not the MAC, not the Pac-12, he did it in the Big Ten where their linemen are notably, famously good. So the level of competition was high, and he was still able to accumulate that sack number.
Yeah, and, I know he got shut down a little bit against Ohio State. It's one of the games where he got blanked, but, against Iowa, Maryland, 3 sacks apiece, 2.5 against Michigan State,
going against his own Wisconsin teammates every day in practice.
Yeah, obviously the iron sharpening the iron type thing. And one other to bring up is Pro Football Focus, the college wing of this, had a 92.8 pass rush grade on Herbig since 2021. That's the second best in the entire Big Ten. And where was this guy drafted again? What pick was this? 132 in the 4th round. Yeah, that's kind of interesting. That's really interesting. So as we progress here through, now we've got 2 7th round picks, and this is like one of those areas where you get into and you're like, who? Although, not everybody thought who when Cory Trice ends up coming off of the board. Cory Trice out of Purdue. And you know what? I had a photo for him, and now I don't know what I did with it. But I'm going to end up I'll find it later. Gotta give my guy a spotlight. Now, when we go to the other 7th round pick, there was no photos at all for Spencer Anderson, offensive guard. It's just nope, no photos for you. Not a whole lot of people were thinking a whole lot of Cory Trice, but another big corner, maybe a project, like a Brian Allen type that came out a few years ago, but 6'3", 205. It's going to be intriguing to watch because it's somebody that is he going to bump somebody like James Pierre off the roster? And we said, what was it? Chandon Sullivan or whatever that just got signed, but 5-year player or Purdue. He did end up getting hurt, I believe, the previous year. And that kind of hurt some of his draft stock. So I like it. I like somebody that's going to be big and physical. You want guys. What did Mike Tomlin, Keeanu Benton let slip that he wanted some goons? Here's another goon with Cory Trice.
Yeah, man. I had heard that this guy was very highly regarded, and another guy who slipped through my cracks because once we got beyond the top 6, 7, 8 corners of the class in the media's eyes and in the Steelers' top 30 visits eyes, I didn't give a whole lot of looks to the rest of the cornerback class. But Trice, in some people's eyes, I mentioned Brett Coleman earlier. Brett Coleman had Joey Porter Jr. as his cornerback 4 of the whole class.
Yeah.
Cory Trice was his cornerback 5 of the whole class. And again, I said this guy knows his stuff. And it wasn't just him. A lot of people had a mid-round grade on this kid, but similar to Darnell Washington, he slipped because of a red flag injury. And as far as his camp is concerned, as far as he's come out and said, everything is fine, all systems go. I can't speak for 3-4 years down the line, but strictly speaking of those terms, I love the pick from a value standpoint where it's the 7th round, dude. Who cares? At one point before they picked, I was pushing for Hunter Lipke, the best fullback of the draft, because we had not yet re-signed Derek Watt. We still haven't, because it's the 7th round, dude. Like, I wasn't like making too much of an argument this way or the other. It's an area where, yeah, if you can fill some depth spots like they did with Spencer Anderson, great. But if there's a guy who falls of Cory Trice's caliber, a guy who by most accounts should have gone by the 4th round at the latest, then you take a swing on that guy. I feel good about his competition, and because I don't think he's going to be battling with Patrick Peterson, Levi Wallace, or Joey Porter Jr., who I mentioned earlier. He by all accounts could be. He could have a phenomenal camp, and he could be in that mix. But I think he's going to be competing with strictly James Pierre, Shandon Sullivan, and the other camp invitees and undrafted guys like that of that caliber. I think he has a really good shot to make the roster in that regard. As long as he can beat out a guy like that, which I think he can, as long as he's healthy, he may make the final 53. Because I have yet to see a 7th round pick like this. Well, actually, that's not true. I would say Trey Norwood actually reminds me of Trey Norwood, where when the Steelers picked him, there were a decent amount of people coming out and saying this kid could make the team, not only because of the competition he faces on the Steelers' particular roster, but his ball skills and what he brings to the table, and as far as his positives as a defensive back, are traits teams covet. He's a good cover guy. He's got length. He's physical. These are things you look for in a cornerback. Pardon me. So I like the pick. I was surprised it happened. I know some people were bringing him up on Twitter and other platforms as one of the best available. And when the pick came through, I was happy to see it. That's the best way I can convey my emotions to the people. When they made the pick, I wasn't like, darn, I wanted someone else. I wasn't bored. I was pretty excited to see a name flash across the screen in the 7th round that a lot of people were calling for.
Yeah, I'm there with you. The very last one, I don't have a whole lot else to add about Trice. To be honest, we'll see if he amounts to being anything super special or not.
Yeah, you made a good call mentioning Brian Allen, and I think that's a good. It's always important to keep perspective. The guy went in the 7th round, But as far as the 7th round pick, I feel as good about it as I could.
Pretty late 7th round picks too for the Steelers. Cory Trice was 241, and then Spencer may as well go and just jump in here on Spencer Anderson was 10 picks later. What we failed to mention was when the Steelers moved back, they moved back 13 spots from their which pick was that? The 3rd round pick that they used.
Pick 80. Yeah,
pick 80. And then picked up one. The one they traded was 13 back as well. It was pretty interesting. So it was almost equal in what they gained. But Spencer Anderson, a lot of people were like, "Oh, they didn't." I get so like irate about like how folks watch the day 3 picks. I did not sit there and watch all day 3 of the draft. They try and stump the truck. You know what that's all about? They don't know who some of these people are. Yeah, they don't know who these people are half the time, and that's what it is. These might be long shots, and if you don't nail your 7th round picks, this is absolute garbage. I wish they would have done something different here in this draft. Look, they weren't taking kickers and punters like the Patriots or whatever, in the middle rounds.
You mentioned Mel Kiper. I saw somebody else say if they would have done better in round 7. I'm like, so who are you talking about, Spencer Anderson? Because by all accounts, people love the Trice pick, Cory Trice. They think he's going to be something potentially. Are you critiquing the last pick they had, 251, Spencer Anderson? Like, who cares? Get into 7th round. I think they made the right call. I mean, they didn't address offensive line after Broderick Jones, and you can always use depth in that area. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, you absolutely you need depth. There's who's your backup center right now, and some people are saying maybe Nate Herbig, maybe the Spencer Anderson, maybe they work him out there. So
he is versatile.
Yeah, nobody's mentioning Kendrick Green, okay? And you know what? I'm going to throw one other name out there. It's just like an extra guy. This guy probably won't get a helmet on game days if he makes the squad right now. One undrafted one. You were mentioning Derek Watt, Monty Poundbaum from Iowa. He looks like a lot more handsome there. I got to find like another photo of him with the mullet.
Yeah, he's got a nasty mullet, dude. You're not doing him justice with that picture.
No, I got to find it. Let's see if I can find.
That's his government picture he
Twitter.
just put up there.
It's his passport.
They
See.
gave him a $10,000 signing bonus, which, that's nothing to sneeze at.
No, nothing to sneeze at. You've got. I'll give Brian Batko some credit here. There you go. There's the lovely mullet. But this he's another fire hydrant. And that's
Dan Kreider.
Yes, and it's since the Steelers don't have a dedicated fullback. I mean, maybe Connor Hayward can, but if he doesn't, then he's got this kid's got a shot at perhaps making the team here and making an impact. I think he was
Monty Powerbomb.
Powerbomb. I think he has maybe the best shot, I would say, of the undrafted guys. I didn't go through. I could probably find the list real quick, but nobody else really.
I would say him or the return specialist who plays running back, but they keep saying he's a running back and a receiver, kind of like Trey Archer, San Diego State. That kid's got wheels.
Yeah, and you know what? I'd be remiss because I almost wanted to say Kevin Durant. Remember we were doing that last year, and Jaylen Warren. But out of the rest of the class that got signed, it wasn't anything that was a major like anybody that really stood out. Like the Steelers were still looking for like a backup running back. So yeah, let me see the undrafted rookies that they went after. Jordan Byrd, San Diego State.
That's a kid.
Monty Poundbaum, Tanner Morgan, quarterback Minnesota. So unless Mason Rudolph comes back, this might be your guy that's quarterback 3, but I don't think so either. I think they're going to wait.
He got some some late round projection love. I saw Tanner Morgan was thought of to be maybe a 6th round pick. So when we signed him, that was kind of a little bit of name value. I knew who he was at least, but the headliner of the class is the fullback. For sure.
BT Potter, kicker from Clemson. He's going to be, camp competition. David Perales, Fresno State linebacker. James Nyawaya, I think is Nyamawaya, defensive end. Merrimack.
The other guy you said from San Diego State, Perales.
Yeah, Perales.
Great name for a defensive player.
Yeah.
He got some love from an NFL.com article of, they all pick our best undrafted free agents. They picked him, much to my surprise. I thought it was going to be Monty Poundbaum or Bird.
Yeah, and one other is Trevor Downing, a center out of Iowa State. At worst case scenario, practice squad guy who could give you some competition. Overall, man, I really like this. I like the overview. I like covering some of the other half of the class that we didn't end up getting. We are up against it, though, so thanks for tuning in. If you didn't catch the live shows, they're available on replay. Audio versions wherever you listen to your podcasts or over on YouTube. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Zach, thank you for joining us once again. What's up, man? You're pointing around.
My pleasure.
Yeah, the old salute. I don't know how I feel about that just because of Shannon Sharp and the old Mile High salute. I don't have very good memories of those. What's that?
That was TD. They
all did it at some point. Kind of like the Lambeau leap thing, oh man, we'll get into that on another episode. Jordan Love. Oh geez. I don't know. Let's just count your blessings that the Steelers don't have to deal with any of that. Thank God Lamar Jackson, Aaron Rodgers made up their mind and did something with these other teams so we can maybe get an NFL schedule here in the near future. Please and thank you. That would be nice. So it's driving me crazy, man. I got to be able to make my plans now. And usually the schedule's out. Sometimes it's out before the draft. And they had to wait for these matchups. And they're talking about how many primetime games the Jets are going to have. And I'm just like, how many are they going to flex? I'm coming with the heat on that one. I'm not in sync with that. The Jets hype right now is like 2 or 3 years ago, Cleveland Browns hype for Super Bowl.
The Broncos.
Yeah. Broncos, man. I don't know.
The same thing as the Broncos last year. It's almost identical.
Broncos are getting some of that still too because of Sean Payton and whatnot, but they gave away a lot of their draft. I'd be giving a lot of that. I give a lot more of that over the Seahawks because the Seahawks were still, playoff bound. They were competing. for those spots with Geno Smith, and they don't have a high-priced quarterback, and they had all that draft capital plus like guys like Noah Fant that got traded to their team too. So, but those are more things to talk about here in the coming days and weeks as we're going to hit the slow period, but we're still going to try to come to you a couple of times a week. So thank you for tuning in, watching or listening wherever you may be. My name is Joe. His name is Zach. And until next time, we encourage all of our viewers and listeners out there to be safe, be good, and we'll catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.